Hello, everyone, and welcome to KV Psychic Intelligence. My name is KV. Now, before we get started with the psychic reading, I want to let you all know if you're new to this channel, the readings done here will be a little bit different from the traditional tarot or psychic style reading, where instead of me pulling cards, what I will be doing is leveraging numbers. Now, if you stick toward the end, I'll give you an insight on the techniques that I use to get these numbers, but there is one number I want everyone to pay attention to, and that is called the general intensity. I will call this GI for short. Now, GI will be the general baseline for all of the preceding numbers that will be displayed in this reading. And so look at GI as if this were a spectrum analyzer where you have your radio signals, and anything that peaks at or above this general intensity, consider this a high probability. And anything that is below GI, close or near zero, consider that a low probability. And so you'll see exactly how this whole flow works out shortly. And so before we go into the specifics of the reading, I like to pull out a dominant personality matrix. Now, what this is this will show us precisely the viewers or the collective watching this video, the dominant personality types of those viewing this particular message. And so let's take a look at general intensity. So general intensity is at a 20, which means that any metric going forward, if it's at or above this number, then chances are it is a high probability. And so let's start pulling out the personality. So introvert, extroverts. We definitely have extroverts here, not so much introverts. Sensing and intuition. So not much sensors, but we definitely have intuitives here. So let's take a look at the thinking, feeling. We have both thinkers and feelers here. Definitely the thinking type, though. Judging, perceivers. We also have judging and perceivers here. Interesting. All right. Assertive and turbulent. Not much the assertive types, but definitely the turbulent types. And so after extrapolating all these numbers, I managed to pull out 4 personality types. And so if your personality type aligns with one of these, then chances are this message is for you. All right. And so if you don't know your MBTI and if you want to take the self-assessment, feel free to pause the video. You can come back and you can see if your personality matches up with one of these listed here. And so now let's get started with the reading. Now, for your ease, I brought the general intensity here to this page for ease of reference. And so if you're familiar with your traditional tarot card spreads where you have the past, the present, and future, this will be a little bit different where I will pull out the current resonance, which would be translated as the present spread. And so on this particular page, we have a primary category, which I call the energetic flow. This is the manifestation momentum. This is the active energy that the collective is experiencing or active energy that is manifesting in the collective's reality right now. And so let's go ahead and pull this number. So we have it at a 20, which indicates that there is active energy that is coming into the collective's reality right now. And so now with this particular number, what I want to do is go into this as a subcategory. I pulled out 3 subcategories that I would like to get a more fine-tuned reading. So in regards to what's really yielding this number here. And so let's go and take a look at that. Okay. So based on what I'm seeing here, it appears that the collective watching this video right now for sure is having opportunities and relationships coming in. Not so much finances that's in the flow of manifestation, but definitely opportunities and relationships. Now, since the opportunities and relationships are high values, it could be relationships in regards to work opportunities. It could even be romantic. The opportunities could also be new ventures, new paths, meeting new people, and the like. And so now let's go to the second. Now, the second part of the present, this category is the capacity to receive. So this is a metric that measures, is the collective ready to accept, or are they prepared to accept the manifestations coming in? And so let's take a look at the primary category. All right, so we have a 20, which is which is a good indicator. It shows that the collective is at a capacity to receive. And so now, in regards to this number, I want to go into three subcategories to see of this number what is actually yielding this particular expression for the collective's capacity to receive. And so let's go ahead and take a look at these readings. All right. So seeing that opportunities is the only one that is at or above GI, for sure the collective is at a capacity to receive. However, if I go back one page and if I see that there is a relationship here for the energetic flow, this is telling me that while there is energy coming in regards to manifesting a relationship, having this metric below the general intensity indicates that the collective isn't quite within a place within themselves to accept the new relationships that's coming in. And so that's an interesting read. But for sure, the collective is open for new opportunities, whether it is new ventures, just going out, doing new things, having new experiences in life. That is for sure there. But let's go ahead and take a look at exactly why this could possibly be below general intensity, because to see that relationships to see that relationships in one way or another is manifesting in the current flow, to see this below GI is actually interesting. And so let's go ahead and take a look at now the friction points. Now the friction points will be broken down into two categories. We have the internal resistance and the external interference. And so on this page, we're going to look at the inner resistance. Looking at the primary category, we have that at a 23. Okay. So what I'm getting here is that the friction points that the collective is experiencing right now is coming from some kind of inner resistance, inner problems, inner turmoil, what have you. And so now we're going to look into these four subcategories as to what could possibly be yielding this number here. Okay. So we have scattered focus, resistance to change, and delay and inertia, which is all below general intensity. However, the only one that is pointing out here is the subconscious fear. And so this subconscious fear could be anxieties, it could be doubts, it could be just background programs or old patterns that the collective is holding within their psyche that could be preventing them from moving forward. Which now, if we take a look at the relationships that is the capacity to receive, perhaps this is one holding themselves back in regards to actually allowing or accepting that relationship coming in. Because again, if we take a look at the manifestations that's coming in regards to the energetic flow, we for sure are seeing, even at the highest here, that relationships are manifesting. However, to see this below the capacity to receive below general intensity, and now with a little bit more information, we see that there is some kind of subconscious fear, would suggest that perhaps the collective is holding themselves back in expanding their allowance for having that relationship manifest in their reality. Okay. And so now let's take a look at the second friction points here. This is the external interference. Now taking a look at the primary category. Okay, we have that at a 13. So what this is telling me is that out of the friction points that the collective is experiencing in their reality, it is definitely coming from an internal resistance and internal situation, which indicates that it could be subconscious fear. And so since this isn't zero, and since this is a little bit halfway there toward general intensity, what I want to do is pull out three subcategories for the external interference. So should this number here begin to cross general intensity and bleed over into the collective's experience, by going into these three categories, this could give us an indicator of what could potentially manifest should this number exceed or reach GI. Okay. So seeing relational friction and environmental dissonance are the lowest. However, the energy leak even matches the external interference would suggest and tell me that should any kind of external interference arise in the collective's reality, then it would most likely be that of an energetic leakage, whether it's toxic environments that's draining the vitality, whether it's energetic vampires, or just any kind of thing that is directing one's attention away from them that ultimately yields the condition that drains their vitality. Okay. Now, the catalyst. This is the advice and remedy for resolving the friction points that the collective is experiencing here. And so let's go ahead and pull these numbers out. Okay. So seeing all but one is actually matching GI, it's actually kind of obvious now in hindsight looking at it that the best action, the catalyst, and the advice to remedy the friction points is to take the leap. Um, Step out that comfort zone, trust your intuition, don't second guess yourself. And, you know, it may not look pretty, it may not look perfect, but, you know, just getting it done. And I would say in my own personal experience dealing with INTPs and such, you know, I understand how, you know, one could wait for that perfect moment, that perfect opportunity. Things just have to line up exactly. And then bam, we take, you know, I get that. But what's being shown here is just to take the leap. Just take the leap. Don't worry about how it looks. Just adjust and adapt accordingly. And this could actually, this makes a lot of sense now because looking at the subconscious fear, this could simply be a little bit of anxiety in regards to asking that person out. This could be asking for that raise. You know, you may be working in a work environment because again, this is opportunities is coming in. So while the collective's at a capacity to receive opportunities while the relationship is down, if one is having issues at perhaps the workplace environment where they're doing a lot of work, they feel that what they're doing could definitely be paying them a little bit more, but they're probably not quite comfortable within themselves to assert their worth in a workplace, then perhaps this could be an indicator to let you know, hey, go ahead and just take that leap, you know, just go ahead and ask for that raise if you know that you're worthy of it. If you're in the entrepreneurial aspects of reality, then perhaps reaching out to that client, you know, being a little bit bold, you know, not waiting until the project or prototype is exactly perfect. Just go ahead and just put out what you already have. This could also be setting up that business website, writing that ebook, just doing the things that you would have to do that would at the very least manifest the opportunities, because seeing that one is at a capacity to receive, while the relationships and even the finances could indicate that one feels that they're ready for the opportunities, but there is still something within their subconscious that could be holding them back in regards to reaching out to the right people for that opportunity or making the proper investments that could yield the opportunity. All right. And so that's the reading. So how was it? Again, this is a new style. And if you vibed and resonate with this style, go ahead and just add some comments. If you have any suggestions, again, this is my first time uploading this kind of video, and so I'm adjusting and adapting as I go along as well. And so if you have any kind of critiques or just suggestions on what could be added or removed, go ahead and just let me know, and I'll take that in consideration and adjust and adapt. And so now this concludes the session. And so if you're just here for that, then you can go ahead and cut off. But if you stay now, I'll go ahead and go over a little bit on the techniques that I use. All right, so the techniques that I use is I use a technology called radionics. That's radionics. Now, consider radionics as a very high precision sensitive psychic radio, and it quite literally looks like a radio, where a person uses their subtle energy, their psychic intent to quite literally, for all intent and purposes, tune into very specific frequencies. Now, if you're familiar with how people use pendulums, pendulums and radionics, how the way it's used for the tactile sensations is actually very similar, because with pendulums, it moves based on the intent of the operator and the flow of energy that's flowing through their hand and through the pendulum. With radionics, it's more direct and hands-on, to where one uses tactile stick pads while actively tuning into very specific radio dials. And when the pendulum spins in a certain direction, which is a yes or a no, a radionics practitioner will quite literally get like a sticky pad, a stick type sensation to this pad. And so how I was pulling out all of these numbers is, what I do is I tune into the collective consciousness. And when I tune into the collective consciousness, I hold a very specific intent. Who's attracted to this video and all of the like. And then after that, what I do is I just pull out a simple number. Now, based on quantum observer and just the quantum observer effect, if I go in and do this reading again, the numbers will be different just based on new observers here. But what I do is, after pulling out the general intensity number, I then create subcategories with the category in mind. I just tune into that and just compare all of the numbers against this general intensity. And that's all what it is. It's not an over complicated thing. If you go to my website, which is in the description, I offer services where I call them psychic reports. Consider them, think of a psychic report as like the background check you actually want. This is actually how I started all of this to begin with. It wasn't out of tarot or anything. It was from a legitimate need I had to psychically vet people in my circle. I don't want to go on a whole story with my spiritual healing journey and all of that, but just to keep it short and brief here, the psychic reports I create is I use the same techniques where I tune into the energetics of the people in my circle. I pull out things such as their mindsets. What kind of mindset do they hold? Their emotional intelligence. This is a big one for me. A narcissist, for instance, isn't going to tell you they're a narcissist. One typically figures all of that out after having a kid with them, or after getting stuck with them in some situation, or further after the fact when it's too late. And so what I do is, instead of me fighting and waiting for the apple seed to sprout as an apple tree for me to confirm the apple seed as an apple seed, what I do is just pull out quantum potential variables here. So are they empathic? Do they express emotional reciprocity? Do they respect boundaries? Do they have the propensity to even understand you? Because that's a big one there. It's like, we could be having all of these interpersonal relationships, but do they even want to understand you? Just imagine how one would move if they had a report that would indicate potential narcissists before dedicating or allocating any important time, energy, and life force energy. The propensity to fake ignorance. This is another one, that weaponized incompetence that the youngins talk about today. I mean, to have an entire generation have a way to express the same patterns that's been going on for generations tells me that this is something that's been festering on for a very, very long time. I mean, so long, in fact, that people can align on the same common language to express the patterns, I don't have to play the games with people. I just pull out numbers, and should the potential variables show me an indication or an insight into something, then I move accordingly. I then look at the motivators. Are they intrinsically motivated, extrinsically motivated? Are they motivated to be autonomous? Are they motivated to even be competent? Are they motivated by greed, status, sensation, power, revenge? All of these kinds of things. And again, the reason why I had all of this to begin with, this was something for me to have a peace of mind, because being an empath, a super empath, it was very hard for me to have to deal with people saying one thing while meaning another. and just going through that back and forth games where people, they're not really going to tell me the kind of person they are, even though my intuitive sense is pulling out things like, hey, I can read your thoughts, I can read your emotions, I can read your intent, all these kinds of things. There is still that left brain part of me where it's like, but still I gotta see a little something. And this whole process that I created satisfies that left brain, because while I am intuitively picking up things, instead of me waiting for things to quote unquote play out, I can leverage radionics to use my intuition to get all of the impressions and insights. And then afterwards, I can then use my left brain logical sense to go into Detective Conan mode to actually pull out and cross reference all of these symbols based on what I'm perceiving holistically. And so I even go into prejudices as well. This was a big one here because, I mean, just imagine if I come out to my family members, and just say, hey, I'm a non-binary asexual. Or just imagine if you're like in a relationship, and all asexuals, I will tell you this from experience, all asexuals will tell you this, is that it's that dreaded talk that one's going to eventually have to have with their partner where they're like, actually, I'm asexual. And it's like all of that, I love you, and da 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 da, and all of this. All of a sudden, they'll start acting funny. They're going to start, like fabricate situations to make it seem like, we're the problem or so, to say, hey, well, actually, I think we should start seeing new people. But hey, I mean, doesn't matter because I already know they're motivated by sensation. They're motivated by just all kinds of things, intrinsically, extrinsically motivated. They're motivated by a lot of things. And having a metric, having a way for me to have a readout of their energy well ahead of time saves so much energy and time, because it's like, if I know that you're prejudiced, if I know if you're against this, even against this, it's, or this even, it's just, it is a good indicator for one to just be informed and move accordingly. That's the best way I describe it. Be informed and move accordingly. And the state of being, this actually made me a little bit sad, because when I started to psychically vet my family members to get a readout on their particular energy, a lot of them held on to a lot of shame, guilt, and grief. And there was actually a lot of pride with some of my family members. But after getting these kinds of readings on their energy, it really made it easy for me to not only maintain a peace of mind, but also it was easy for me to let them go in a lot of ways. And that ultimately led me to move 2 time zones away from them. I moved 2 time zones away from everything and everyone I knew in the old life, and I just started a new life here in Portland, Oregon. And so if I go to the personal influences, I renamed it. It's interpersonal now, but interpersonal influences, this is basically a reading to indicate what it is like to be in their presence. So do they have the propensity to develop things such as wellness, balance, harmony in the environment when you're around them? Or if you're around them, do they create confusion, dysfunction, chaos, intimidation, or degradation? So do things break down when you're around them? These were big ones here. Do they have the propensity to drain life force energy? So are they consciously or unconsciously aware of draining the vitality of one's essence? Do they have the propensity to hijack and distract attention? This is a big one here. So it's like if I'm walking to family members or so, like if I'm going to the bathroom or something, and then it's like all of a sudden when I'm in the bathroom, now they want to turn up the TV and things of that nature, or they want to start talking loud, or if I just walk past them, then they just do some weird gesture or something just to try to get my attention. All of this will fall into that category, to hijack and distract attention. Do they have the propensity to dispel focus? Is it hard to focus and concentrate around them? Does your focus just sizzles and scattered out and about? That could indicate that they have distortive type energies, to where it's very hard to maintain a coherent and solid concentration. Do they disrupt flow? I do Tai Chi and Qigong every single day. And so when I'm around certain family members, when they walk around, like I have my eyes closed, and it's like all of a sudden I'll get this feeling, oh, the Chi isn't flowing right or anything. And something just guides me to open my eyes, and I see family members walking past me and looking at me and all that kind of stuff. And so, all of this was based on just personal experiences, and just using those personal experiences to create a protocol that I call a protocol that I use to psychically vet people in my circle. And I will say right now, I'm not lonely. I mean, I have no one in my circle really. I'm not lonely. I'm just at peace. I am, because it's one thing to have those constant what ifs in the mind. It's one thing to constantly think maybe I should have done this, I should have done that. But for me to have a sense to where I can psychically vet people, and again, I've been doing this for a couple years, and so I have the backing and the experience to really trust what it is I'm doing. And so to have these kinds of metrics without middlemen, without going through someone, without even paying people subscription services to stream me along in circles to make it seem like I'm getting somewhere ahead, but I'm really not. This really gives me a peace of mind to where I could just pull out information, any kind of thing that I want, really. And so you're probably interested in the one I did on myself, but the reason why I started with the personality readings in the psychic readings here is because it does offer a very high dimensionality of expressing the information that's always been here. I remember in the past, I used to be heavy INTP. I was pulling those types consistently. And it was around I started my spiritual journey around 2019 that, I realized I was really suppressing a lot of feelings, a lot of emotions because of just dogma, just the process of developing here on earth around, certain people and environments. And after letting all that stuff go, and I realized, I'm really a heavy feeler. But even going back in and doing this assessment on myself, I realized that, okay, the intensity is at 23, but while it is at 23, here for the extrovert, I certainly am an introverted type, but I don't mind being extrovert. I'm not much a sensor, but I'm definitely an intuitive. I don't mind thinking, but I'm definitely a feeler. Not much a judger, but I'm a perceiver. I don't mind being assertive if I have to, but I'm most certainly turbulent. And just looking at it in this way just gives a higher dimension on how to see the information, because I'm sure people who are familiar with the MBTI, when they're taking it, they may get mixed results. They may have a certain type one year, and then the next year, under different feelings and thoughts and circumstances, it could change. And just looking at it in this way, I understand why now, because it's just, we're all a fluidness. We're not a static, fixed in place type of being. We're very fluid, we're very dynamic. In one way, in this environment, we may have to be like this, while in another environment we have to be like this, and it will express itself the same way here in these numbers. And so it's just a little bit in regards to what it is I do. I didn't mean to bore you all with that. If that was boring, my apologies. But if you're interested in the services that I provide, you could take a look at it on my website. It's in the description. I offer psychic readings for $30. Now, the psychic readings will be similar to what the collective watched here in this video, but it does not include the personality assessment. It just goes straight into the reading. The reason why I pull out a personality assessment for the general collective is so I can, at the very least, just get an idea on who's watching it, and for those who are watching it, if they align more with these types, it's more so like a added little confirmation mix. But this is actually from the general psychic reports that I create. And so I just want to make that clear, that if you're going for a psychic reading, this is where it's going to start. It's going to start directly in the reading. It goes into that. I have MP3 recordings that will explain the reading for you, so you can listen to it on your own time and all of that. And if you do if you pay for the psychic reports, then that's where you get the full report. Right now, the reports are $30. They're 50% off because it does. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time and energy to really tune into energetic structures. And so, yeah, that's it. Again, if you're interested, go ahead and check it out on my website in the description. Um, if you are interested in this kind of format, if you really do like it, go ahead and subscribe. Go ahead and share this with people in your circle. Again, this is a format that I am introducing into the psychic community. It's not a it's not even a brand new way. It is just one way of doing the things that people have been doing for a long time. I mean, radionics is well before my time. I'm 33 years old, and this has existed for decades. I'm just introducing, or just bringing awareness on what's already here, really. And so it's just another way of just doing the fun things that we psychics like to do. And so, yeah, there you have it. So thank you all for taking the time to watch this video, and you take care now.